up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to do something that I thought would be neat. It's because we're almost mid-season, so I did it preseason, and I kind of went over in a crude simulation for about week 3, week 4. Not much has changed, but I've gone into the to potential playoff matchups and things that I think make a lot of sense with how they book this WWE like booking, and I've taken a lot of things into account, things that I believed in the preseason and things I've reassessed. Before I go into that real quick, I do want to go into just something that I find to be pretty interesting. Again, this is like the fourth time in a week that this guy Jake here has been brought to my attention. I've known about him for a bit, and it's one of those things that even when I try and avoid it, it's like every day someone's like, "Oh, did you see Jake do this, do that? He's copying you here, making videos." And the reason I bring it up is simply because I had made a comment not that long ago, because again it was brought to my attention this guy was copying me, and he got so angry and he got so defensive and just overreacted to the point where I guess he made a channel, his own channel, just to make videos about me. And again, if he's not watching my videos, I don't know how a 30-second comment that I had made would make it to his desk. But either way, maybe somebody watched it. But you can see here that I didn't just make the comment for the sake of making the comment. He quite literally thanks me. I'm kicking myself for not telling all of your college basketball picks. I'll be sure to take every college basketball pick you make from now on. That's an incredible day you had. The fact that you don't know about these teams just speaks to the volumes of how rigged it is. I can't even name one college player on any team, laugh out loud, and I am betting on the shit because you opened my eyes to the metrics. Doesn't sound like a guy that had been doing all of these things on his own without stalking our videos. And he's not the only guy to do it, okay? He also made his way into the Discord ban of shame just because, again, he tried to weasel his way in there. So again, for me, this isn't a type of deal where I go into every single week I'm going to be, quote, exposing this guy. This guy's exposed himself. But just the fact that he got so angry, he's been posting maniacal rants on my page, which is fine. I blocked 2 of his accounts. He made a 3rd one. Then the dude makes a Jake Plays Slots account, pretending to be someone else. You could read the whole thing. It was on one of my more recent videos, although I doubt you want to. And then he slips up and talks in the 3rd person. So the guy's just a maniac who basically stalks our channel, which is fine, steals our ideas. But I just wanted to set that record straight because, again, there was no lies told regarding exactly what he's doing. It's abundantly obvious. I think he's just mad that people are starting to see, wow, he's not only just taking ideas, he's literally copy and pasting from other people. He deleted that message from when he had thanked me for opening his eyes to the rigged Vegas metrics and pretended he never wrote it. But yeah, it happened. So I just wanted to go over that because, again, this happened before, and I don't take the bait. A lot of these guys, they go after each other. Every video they're dedicating hours to going after each other, and it's ridiculous. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. He can continue to say whatever he wants, but again, as you guys know, I'm as transparent as it gets, probably to a fault. So anyway, I thought this would be really cool if we go into a prediction, because again, when I did it at the beginning of the year, it was just teams I thought were going to make the playoffs, and not many of them have changed, but you'll see a few of them have. And the exact standings, they might not be exactly how I think they're going to finish, and Week 18 isn't exactly, we're not even there yet, so it's not exactly how I think it's going to happen, but I think we'll be pretty close. So for the playoffs, this is what I have. I have, and you could probably imagine who the 1 seeds are. I got the Cowboys as the 1 seed, and I do have, for the AFC, it's going to be the Ravens. And the reason I have these particular matchups is I think it makes sense. Now, the records might not be exact. I get that. The Jets might not finish quite as good. I get that. They might be flipped with the Bills. But either way, I'm going to go into each team and why I think they do make sense. So first I'll start at 7 and work in. So we have the Commanders on the NFC side. I think they make a lot of sense. Also, it'd be two of Dion's teams playing. And I think they make sense for the simple fact Dan Snyder's gone. They almost made it last year. He made a cryptic comment saying basically, "Yeah, I'll leave, but I need some type of leverage. I want something in return." And I don't think it was money he was talking about. These guys, Vince McMahon supposedly left WWE. People still wonder if he's there. So they still have connections and ties to the team. Don't forget, this is a very powerful group of individuals. But either way, even if, look at it from either angle, or if he's completely gone, they hated Dan, so they're going to want them to look good without him. So I do believe Dion's probably the team he's least known for, and it's also the team that technically he never played for the Commanders, but he played for this franchise. I think that they do make the playoffs as a 7 seed. Now, as you can see, I do have a switch. Now, to me, this was a very disposable swap, and it's the Rams. Before the season, they were not really a thought, to be quite honest, but it's just because of the way we've been conditioned. After a team does terrible after a Super Bowl, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they're rebuilding," but we really don't look at it really closely. We realize that they're not rebuilding. They have the same guys, and they're just adding guys, and now they have two receivers who can really tear up the field. So I think they're definitely going to pitch them. I think in the playoffs, Aaron Donald, even Stafford, he might not be the greatest, but he's good enough in my opinion. I think that defense. I think they don't have Ramsey anymore, but they still have a lot of the same defenders. Wagner, they still have, again, probably more of a draw now on offense than they had before. So I think they're definitely trying to get the Rams looking competitive again, and I just think they're more of a draw than the Seahawks. I think they're going to mix it up from last year, and this will be the year the Rams get in. And then at 5, again, this could be a lot different. But obviously, when we have the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Eagles, and obviously the Lions looking like they look, you're not going to have all these teams finish top 3. I did think about the prospect of the Eagles getting number 1, which, again, they could be completely disposable for the Cowboys, because that would be interesting too, because we would have Cowboys versus Falcons, and we'd have Commanders versus Niners. So we'd have 4 of Dion's 5 teams playing each other, with the 5th one having a bye week. So all of Dion's teams would be basically playing each other. Now I think about it, I almost want to do that. Let's see. Let's hope this doesn't boot the Commanders out. Okay. I actually like this bet. Oh, it stayed the same. Whatever. Well, either way, there's a good chance we get the Cowboys and the Falcons and the Eagles as the 1 seed. That way they'll be the 1 seed 2 years in a row in the NFC. That's a possibility. But again, with the way these draws fall, as you can see, one game sometimes can flip a team out, but it still winds up making it where it's very tough to predict exact outcomes. But yeah, now I think about it, I think Cowboys, Falcons. But anyway, these are the teams I have getting in. So 5th is the Eagles, and it's simply because they're definitely getting in the playoffs. I think the reason I gave the Cowboys the division was because it's been a while, and it'll be a nice consolation prize because they're not going to win the whole thing. But either way, whether it's Cowboys, Eagles, whether it's Niners, I have all 3 of them getting in for obvious reasons. 4 is one that might not be as obvious. I do like the Falcons to win the division. Again, it's because of the Dion connection. It's too strong to fade. And with the way they're pushing running backs and how important they are, basically if Robinson doesn't do incredibly well, which he has been doing so far, from what they're saying, the running back position is going to be obsolete. So I think they need to have a reason to pay running backs. They always like to find a reason to overpay the players, so I think he's going to be the reason they make the playoffs. And they'll probably edge out the Saints and the Bucks in like a pathetic 3-way race. And then 3, probably no surprise. I went in, this is like the one team in the beginning of the year, besides like the Niners and the obvious ones. I did a video just going into why the Lions would be a great pick. Vegas obviously knew they were going to be good, and they could even do better than people were thinking. Again, I thought they'd get about 11, 12 wins. I'm still sticking with that. I think that makes sense to me. And again, them Rams is an interesting matchup. You have a Goff versus an old team, and I think that would be a pretty cool matchup. So I think it's also because, again, the Rams, they won the Super Bowl not that long ago. So for a young team like the Lions to come along and boot them out, I think would be a interesting story. So I do have the Lions advancing there, but I'm going to continue on. The Niners here, of course, I think they're going to get a top seed. Whether they get a bye week or not, I'm not sure. After losing this week, I think it's an excuse to give the Cowboys again or the Eagles the first seed. The other team would by default get the fifth because of obviously the division winners get the priority. But yeah, I think it'd be probably a nice matchup. I think the Commanders again because you could swap them out for a team. The Seahawks would be the one that comes to mind. But I think the NFC East does pretty well for the most part this year. And the Falcons could get an early upset, but I don't think it would happen. I think we'd be looking at something like this. And this sets up a couple of different narratives right off the bat. Now, on this side, we got the Dolphins with the 7 seed. The only reason I gave them the 7 seed is because the Chiefs are clearly going to get a top seed. Now, they could get this. The Chiefs could get a 1 seed and then meet the Dolphins in the next round. Similar to how I said Dolphin or Cowboys, Eagles could be flipped. But I think this is what we get. I think we get Mahomes versus Hill. And it'll be very interesting. But it's just what makes sense to me. At the beginning of the year, obviously, the Chiefs was one of my bad takes. I thought they were going to have an off year. But after seeing what's happening, the way they're pushing these narratives, they're pushing in between the Cowboys and Lions and the Niners and Lions and the Cowboys and Niners, the players going off about each other. These guys have been going back and forth for a while now. Mahomes has been more like Brady would act, because he's probably told exactly what to say. But Tyreek Hill's been talking a lot of bull junk, as Deion Sanders would say, basically saying two is better. And to be fair, he is having a better year. So to me, this matchup has to happen. It just makes no sense not to let it happen. And as you can see, 6, I have the Bills. I don't think, now again, the Jets could certainly swap. I just, again, I don't think that the Bills are going to have an amazing year. The Dolphins might wind up winning the division again and playing the Chiefs in the second round. So these seedings might be a little off. It's the more the matchups I'm going for, because if we don't get them in the first round, I think we'll get them in the second round. But either way, so Bills wind up playing the Jets in this matchup theory, and I think it makes sense. A lot of times you will have at least one game in the playoffs where it's a rubber match. The teams played twice. The reason I'll go into the Jets in a second. I'm going to cover these in order, but I have the Bills in because of obvious reasons. And again, they could easily flip and get a higher draft pick. I'm not saying they're not going to. And should they do that, then they might have a different first round matchup. Might not be the Jets. I just think that the Bills aren't going to have. They usually have a top 3 seed. I had it coming into the year. I didn't think the Chiefs were going to do good, but between them and the Bills, I really thought one of them for once wasn't going to win the division, and I'm still standing by that. So that's why I like the Bills to get in, probably as like a 6 seed. Now, whether do they play the Jets and win? Honestly, at this point, I think the Jets are going to win the first round. I think they're going to get in the playoffs and win the first round. Maybe it's just a sucker's bet, but they're really teasing this Rodgers return. Now apparently he's walking without a boot, so this this injury that was supposed to be season long is really seeming to heal up quick, and I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's definitely on purpose and intentional. So I think they're going to have them just in range for the playoffs, which is why they might not get the 3 seed. This might definitely be flipped. But again, since they're playing each other towards the end of the year, the winners of the divisional games will probably win the division. But I think they would have had a much worse record by now. They'd be sitting there like the Patriots, like the Chargers, who are obviously going to get rid of their coach and rebuild. But the Jets aren't. They're staying in it. They're beating good teams. So I do think that there's a and they're running this narrative where they're beating top quarterbacks. I brought it up, and then ESPN posted it like 12 hours later, so I knew that's where they were headed. Because so far Wilson has beaten Russell Wilson, he's beaten Jalen Hurts, and he's beaten Josh Allen. So I think that's an interesting group of quarterbacks to have almost beat Mahomes. So I think they're going to continue that, and it's more the Jets defense that's beating them. They're pushing that narrative, not Wilson. But I think Rodgers comes back, and if he does, I don't think it's going to be for a playoff loss. So that you might consider that a hot take, but that's fine. Number 5, I got the Bengals in there because they're doing the same thing as last year. They just started off a little colder this year, and now it's going to be like, oh wow, now Burrow came from 0-3 instead of 0-2, and they added that extra game for a reason. I think it's for excitement because you can start off with a pretty bad record and still make a playoff run like the Lions did last year, almost made the playoffs. So we would have Lawrence against Burrow, the two number one picks, which is interesting. And the question is, are they going to pull the trigger with Lamar with I was going to say Lamar because I'm curious about him myself, but with Lawrence, and honestly, it's tough to tell. As of right now, I think they want a couple powerhouses. So I think if we got this matchup, we would have Burrow firing on all cylinders, and while it's tough to knock him out in the first round, I do think that they'd wind up knocking out the Jags here. And this would be interesting because it would give us a Jets-Chiefs rematch. Again, the Jets had beaten Allen the first time. Would they be able to beat him again and then beat Mahomes? And it would give us Ravens-Bengals, which is another rubber match, which I think would be interesting. And then on this side, I think it's going to be really interesting because you get the Eagles-Cowboys, which we get a lot of the times. We get them for the third time in the playoffs. And we have the Lions-Niners, and I think that would be the most exciting one because people would want to know if the Lions are for real. And it would give us the first versus last narrative, at least in the playoffs, where Goff was the first overall pick and Purdy was the last. So I just think something like this is going to happen. Going through them, Cowboys, Eagles, it's a tough one. Are they going to do what they did with the Phillies and have the Eagles get back to the NFC Championship? Very possible. And then on the Cowboys end, are they going to do the rematch that everybody is expecting? I personally don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to do the rematch. I don't know why. Because I think if they do the rematch, the Cowboys would definitely win it. And I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl. So I think maybe next year they would do the rematch, or at least a playoff match. But yeah, this year I don't see them having a rematch in the playoffs. I don't know why. I just feel like now it's going to be San Francisco, Philly. There's a lot of San Francisco, Philly connections. And don't forget, Philly was the last one who handed them their Brock Purdy his first loss. They did just lose to the Browns, but they're going to probably run the argument that it was without McCaffrey, so it doesn't count, because they were even talking about how they've been since they got McCaffrey. But yeah, I think Philly San Francisco is an interesting connection, and the WrestleMania is in Philly this year, and they've been really odd with following Super Bowl teams. The year the Bucks won, WrestleMania was in Tampa, and so was obviously the Super Bowl. And the year the Rams won, WrestleMania was set to be in Los Angeles, but due to COVID policies and such, they were not allowed to do it there. But they kind of tail the Rumble sometimes, but more so WrestleMania seems to tail the Super Bowl a good bit. Then on the other side, this is where the Jets' Cinderella story would end. If, again, I think they make the playoffs and get out of the first round, but again, we'll have to see what happens. And I think we get the Chiefs. I'm still sticking to what I went into a little bit earlier, about a week ago, not even, a theory I have with the Chiefs and the Niners. And again, you see all of Deion's teams got in. A few of them made it far, at least by my theory. But I do think it's a good take, if like teams like the Commanders, to make the playoffs, just because I do think they're all getting in. Now, Ravens, Bengals, I don't know if people would want to see Bengals and Chiefs again. We really haven't seen this matchup too many times, so I think this would be a good matchup, which also fits pretty well because the Ravens were my preseason Super Bowl pick. It was Niners, Ravens, with the Niners winning, and even going into the year, that was my pick still, Niners, Ravens, with the Niners winning. So, do I still have it Niners, Ravens? Well, I have the Niners beating the Eagles. I think it's their time, and I think they're going to beat whoever wins this game. Now, Ravens would be interesting because of my seeding. We would get number 21. But we have two rematches as well, as you can see. The Blackout Bowl, and then we have the one that wasn't that long ago. And that's why I think that one makes more sense, because the one that wasn't that long ago, we still have the same players, the same coach. We don't even have Harbaugh on the Ravens anymore. So, like, a lot of it, or not on the Ravens, he's on the Ravens, he's not on the Niners. as brothers, not there anymore. So to me, it's not much of a rematch when none of the players are the same. Here you got Debo, who was there when they lost. I think he was there when they lost it. I'm almost positive, or maybe he was there afterwards when they lost. Yeah, I don't think he was there yet. But they still had a lot of the same guys there. Bosa, a lot of the role players were there, and while it was Jimmy G and not Purdy, obviously, I think Purdy's basically. I think it's the same story with a much better baby face, if you will. Mahomes is basically the villain of the league now. Purdy is being established as a babyface. So, to me, it makes perfect sense that Purdy would be the guy. And again, it's not first versus last, but it is first versus absolute best. They're saying greatest of all time, which I find very interesting. So, I personally think we would see a Niners victory. You could have again the Mahomes narrative where it's Mahomes is so good he can beat even the Niners. But like we just saw with the Nuggets against Jimmy Butler, as good as a player plays and he destroyed the Bucks, they showed a well-rounded team, and the Heat are a well-rounded team, but the Nuggets are just better. A team that's more well-rounded is going to beat superstars and things of that nature. So while again the Heat aren't the greatest example because they don't have a bunch of superstars, if you look at the Lakers right before it, the Nuggets beat them. I think it was the Suns that the Nuggets beat before that. So they really wanted to prove that teams beat superstars. And if you look at who the Heat beat Giannis. Now he got injured in the Bucks, and he beat the Celtics. So they copy the same formula in football that they do in basketball, in my opinion. And this has wrestling written all over it. You get Mahomes versus Purdy. It's just such a marketable matchup. They spent time marketing Purdy. If he gets redemption by beating the Eagles after not being able to play last year, and they just lost to the Browns. So for the people saying, "Oh, everyone's going to be on them," now every team has a reason for the public to be fading them, and the Chiefs are just, I feel like, going to sneak right in there. People looking at them as favorites, saying, "Okay, I can get a team for better odds," and I think they're going to sneak the Chiefs right in there. Some ties I went into last year how it was the natives Chiefs versus Philly, where the Constitution was written, all those different things, and then you have, or signed I should say, and then you have San Francisco obviously is gold, so people are talking about the gold standard. So I think it's all very interesting, and obviously the Niners, or not the Niners, the Nuggets just won, that's gold, a lot of connections, and again it's Dion's team that he said was the best team that's ever been assembled. The 94-95 Niners is who he was talking about. Shannon Sharp's in the news a lot talking about Dion. That was why I was thinking of Ravens for a bit. But yeah, I think this is what we get. I went into briefly why I liked a matchup of Chiefs-Niners, but I hadn't done a complete simulation yet outside of the very preseason. And now that we have some matchups and rivalries developing, I wanted to go into all of them. So yeah, like I said, this is what I think happens. Of course, playoff time, that might change. There's nothing wrong with reassessing. But I always like to do futures and go into exactly what matchups I think make sense. It also makes sense because a lot of these teams will play each other throughout the year, or their records might be contingent on how they finish, how they seed, and some matchups just don't make any sense. So we can kind of use that booking, in my opinion, as a good way to see which each week, which teams make the most sense. There's a few examples this week, to be quite honest. Even though it was last week, technically, Cowboys-Chargers were one of those because, as you see, I don't have the Chargers in the playoffs because I think they're firing their coach. Now, if they fire him quickly, they might be able to turn it around and do a comeback story. But I think the comeback story is reserved for the Bengals this year, and then I guess Rodgers too. So you can let me know what you think. If you think the some of these teams are seeded too high again, they're not perfect. The Jets probably won't get a 3 seed. Then again, I don't know if the Bills are winning the division either. So we might get something where the Dolphins win the division, but they win their first round matchup. The Chiefs are a number 1 seed or something like that. Or even if the Chiefs aren't a 1 seed, they win their first round matchup, and they could easily draw the Dolphins. So they could draw each other in the divisional round, which might be more intriguing. But I just wanted to go into matchups that I think we will inevitably see. And yeah, I don't think we're going to see Niners-Cowboys again this year. I think they're going to tease that for next year. and give us Niners-Eagles, because nobody really got to see the actual Niners-Eagles game. And as you can see, the Ravens I have right in there. If it's not the Chiefs, the Ravens make the next most sense to me. I know a lot of people like the Dolphins. I could see it, obviously, especially if they were to get the upset and beat the Chiefs. They'd probably be my new favorites, but in the playoffs, I mean, not in the regular season. Actually, there's another one. In the regular season, whoever wins that game, there's a good chance the opposite team is going to win in the playoffs. But there's not much, in my opinion, besides nothing's really going to change me on the Niners. So it's a matter of who they play. Will it be the Ravens? Will it be the Chiefs? Might it be the Dolphins? Jets make no sense to me, but they do make sense to make a run to get into the playoffs. So hopefully you guys like this. As you can tell, the audio has been fixed. I have two different phones. I'm like trading in one. The iPhone is just way better with screen recording. Has a better picture. I'm a minimalist as far as things, so I have like outdated things, so I usually don't care, but when it's like completely muffled, it's getting very frustrating. I can understand, so I appreciate people that bared with me, and the videos going forward should be a lot more clear, which is nice, because it didn't start happening until like a month or so ago. I had swapped phones, and the Droid just sucks with a screen recorder, I guess. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you think, and I just wanted to go into everything, and I'll be doing each game this week. I'll probably be doing, a lot of times I'll try and hit the 1 o'clocks at the same time, and we have college games coming up too. Just a little bit of alpha. I think mid-Tennessee State's a nice cover. I wouldn't even mind sprinkling some on the money line. It's not an official play. I posted it on my membership, but I'm not going to make a video about it just because nobody cares to watch mid-Tennessee State versus Liberty. But I do think taking mid-Tennessee State to cover the spread, I think they will. Liberty's really good against the spread, and mid-Tennessee sucks against the spread. And again, metrics are very important with college, as Jake pointed out and thanked us for. They really are. It's weird more people haven't noticed it, to be quite honest, because it's a pretty not obvious thing, but all these handicappers, all these people talk about, oh, take this team because they're good against the spread. But if you look back on history, you're not going to have teams finish perfect or winless against the spread. And Liberty, I think, only has one loss against the spread. Mid-Tennessee State has like 2 wins against the spread. And Liberty hasn't lost a game this year. So, again, a lot of undefeated teams left. That's one of the reasons I think an upset's possible. But taking the spread's obviously more safe, and I think they definitely cover the spread. So, yeah, Niners, Chiefs is who I have right now. Niners winning the Super Bowl still. And if not, Ravens is definitely not something I'm going to fight people on. I think that could happen too. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate everyone in the Discord who brings things to my attention, who's honest. And everyone on the channel. Again, 99.9% of the people who comment are well-meaning, well-intended, and provide good insight. And the rest are usually just 3rd, 4th, 5th accounts from other channels that want to just troll us because they don't like the truth being told. So yeah, I do appreciate everybody that makes this channel great. We've been growing, which is amazing. And speaking of outdated equipment, I did get a new microphone for my laptop, so I'll be doing a live video soon, which would be cool because obviously we can go over a ton of theories, and I thought it'd be good to do it, even maybe the Thursday night game. As you know, I've been picking the Saints to go over a good bit, so we're probably going to be playing that over, so I can go into that game. We can do that live, or there might be a college game we can do, but I thought about going live on Thursday. I thought it'd be a good day. So take care, everybody, and happy earnings.